Hey guys, how are we doing today? Okay, so I want to talk today about an unpleasant topic, but it kind of has just been brought to me, so I figured I'll talk to you guys about it. And maybe other people can have some insight as far as experiences with this situation as well. So I have a Katahdin ewe. She is 6 years old. I've had her for a few years now. She's a great mom. She's structurally a really nice ewe. Um, but a little backstory. So she's always lambed really good for me. But last season, those of you that have followed with me may remember she had a retained placenta for me last season. And so I've never dealt with I've had a delayed placenta where it just takes a little bit longer than normal for them to pass it. But she retained hers for like days. And so I did all of the treatments that you would normally do, and I did antibiotics and we did all the things. And she ended up recovering and lived. And life was fine, whatever. So then last fall, I figured, well, I'll breed her again. We'll see what happens. Like, I didn't know if a retained placenta that long would affect her reproduction at all. But I'm like, we'll wing it. We'll see what happens, right? So that's what I did. And then, like, most of my ewes had to get bred a second time on their second cycle. That was just how last season went. I tried breeding them earlier than usual, so I think maybe that had something to do with it as well. But anyway, so she didn't take on her first heat. I was like, no big deal, because not all of my ewes did last season. But she came back in heat at really strange intervals. So not like every 21 days like they normally would. Hold on, I need my coffee. And so I thought, okay, that's kind of weird. Tipper, are you going to come in the video with me today? Yeah? That's Tipper. Tipper is one of our Anatolians. Anyway, so anyway, that was that. So she kept coming back in heat at strange intervals, and I thought, okay, well, whatever. I'm going to leave her in with our ram and see what happens. So that's what I did. And she went and she stayed in there with him like the whole fall, just like all of our girls did. She kept coming in heat and she kept getting tagged, and I was like, okay, this is strange, but whatever. Pulled the ram. She went. She lived her life throughout the winter like normal. And so here we are, and I just she looked like large, like her body type. Not fat shaming the girl, but I thought, okay, maybe she's just delayed and got tagged on that very last heat. And no, like, she's open. So here's what I'm struggling with now. So now I have a ewe that last season had a retained placenta for me. Now this season, well, not only the retained placenta, but then kept coming in heat over and over at weird intervals, and then didn't take. So, like, what do you do, right? So these are the things as a farmer, as a shepherdess, that you have to try to figure out and deal with, because like, this is really difficult. And I even, like, what do? You can reach out to your vets, you can whatever. And I'm not shaming any of the vets that we have around in my area at all. But when it comes to like some things, they're not as well versed in modern things. So what do you do? So I reach out to other friends that I have that also have a lot of experience in this area and ask them, like, what would you do? What is your opinion? How do I handle this? What could it be? So that's what I was doing this morning, was reaching out and being like, what do I do? So just kind of collecting different opinions, and then ultimately you have to make the decision yourself. So I have, two choices. I can either keep her through this season, keep feeding her, keep having her graze down my pastures with everybody else, taking care of her, whatever. Try her again this fall and see what happens and see if she takes. Or my other option is to cull her from my herd. Now, culling from your herd doesn't always mean like dispatching. It can mean just selling to somebody else, which I would never do in a situation like this, because I'm not going to give my problem to somebody else. So in this situation, it would be a hard cull, which means having her dispatched. So So these are one of the really difficult things that you have to deal with. If you're emotionally invested in this animal, it can be hard to make that decision. Um, that's one of the more difficult ones. And I try to think with my brain, not my heart, and I'm not trying to sound callous, but I'm not emotionally invested in any of my ewes, in any of my sheep, in any of my goats for that matter too. I try to kind of keep it arm's length because it can be really touch and go with these animals. So I just kind of keep myself distanced from them emotionally. So yeah, but these are one of those decisions. It's like, do you put the money in and feed her all season, and just for potentially no reason at all, or do you just say, okay, be really strict with your culling and be like, okay, anybody open at the end of this season is getting removed from the breeding program, because ultimately you don't want to keep things in your herd that aren't going to benefit you, that are either hard to keep weight on them, or maybe they're hard lambers and they just have difficulty. Maybe they're not great moms. Maybe they have slow gain weights in their lambs. There's all different reasons, right? And this is one of the reasons for me, is one that does not breed back. I kind of don't feel like having an open girl around here all season for nothing, and especially with the high probability that she won't take again this fall. Very interesting. One of the other very interesting things that I'll share is, here I'm thinking of her having this retained placenta last year, and maybe the damage it did to her reproductive tract, maybe there was an infection that just kind of is lingering in there, and now, who knows? That was my thinking. But one of my girlfriends this morning said maybe the retained placenta wasn't the problem, but maybe it's a symptom of something else going on. Big brain. That's why you ask people, because they may have opinions or thoughts that you didn't think of. So maybe, who knows, right? The other option would be to pay a vet to come out and do an ultrasound, do blood work, do all this stuff. But honestly, you're going to be looking at, potentially, depending on your vet, like $1,000 by the time you pay a vet call, having ultrasounds ran, blood work done. And this was also going to sound harsh, but if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. So that just is unreasonable. To make money back on that, you would have to sell so many amazing lambs off of that. It's a cruel reality of farming and things that we sometimes have to look at. So yeah, if you have ever had this, please comment. Let me know. I'm just curious what other people have done, or maybe what other people would do. And let's talk about this stuff. Let's educate each other and ourselves about it, and kind of go from there. I'm really leaning towards having her cold. That's just what my brain is telling me is probably the right thing to do. Yeah. I'm probably going to flip-flop on this, though, throughout the day. So I look forward to hearing back what you guys think about it, and I'll keep you guys posted.